Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome in to Coffee Break. Edward already joining us saying, good morning. Who do you think will emerge from plan C and D? We're going to get into it. But first, DMac is on a very well-deserved vacation. So we got Nate Jackson joining us today. Nate, happy to have you. And then we got Cecil, who is live from Las Vegas. Cecil, good morning. How are you? Tell us your morning so far. I know you were up super early.
Yeah, up super early at the airport. Had a delayed flight, but I'm here in Las Vegas for the opening day of the Shrine Bowl. Practices start tomorrow. I'll be here Saturday and Sunday. Monday, I fly to Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl. Then on Thursday, I fly back to Vegas for the actual Shrine Bowl. So, yes, the all-star road trip is here. 17 years in a row, I've made this trek to the Shrine and the Senior, and I love it. It's absolutely a fantastic time.
You can tell he's like so pumped.
Oh, my God. This is Christmas for you. So 21 years ago, Cecil, I played in the Shrine game. Although I actually hurt my hamstring on the second day of practice and didn't actually get to play in the game. But the first day, yeah, it was a real big bummer. It was so disappointing because I was a Division III wide receiver who gets the nod to go play in this game. And I think that this is my chance. This is my opportunity to show I can play with these guys. And then on the second day of practice, boom, I tear my hamstring, didn't get to play in the game. It was incredibly disappointing. But the first day we got there, and you're talking about that today, no practice. What we did do was we went into a ballroom. We got up on a stage, stripped down to our underwear. Scale, got weighed and measured, had to walk to the end of the stage. I'm not joking here. Stand there for 30 seconds in our underwear in front of a room full of guys with clippers in their laps. Then we had to turn around for 30 seconds, stand there with our butt facing these people, and then walk out of the room. Is that still
look at that bubble? Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
The weigh-in is one of the most important parts. Now, the media doesn't have access to it, but guess who does?
You do.
Because, I've got scouting credentials. So, yes, I will be at the weigh-in, and it's always a time when you get to notice a guy's body and a guy's frame. Like, is he maxed out? Is that the biggest he can get? Is that the most muscle he can pack on that frame? Maybe his butt's a little thin. He needs to add to that bubble. Maybe you can work on those quads. It's really an important time. It might be dehumanizing, and I apologize, Nate, but I think it's a point where all the scouts are jotting down notes. I have years and years, almost 2 decades worth of notes from weigh-ins of hey, this is what this guy looks like. And then, I've often said on the air, I've seen a lot of quarterbacks without their shirts on. I don't want a rocked-up quarterback because every quarterback I've seen that's been rocked up has sucked. So give me a guy that's got a little chubby, not me anymore because, let me finish. But I think the weigh-in is a big part of these all-star games.
Okay. Yeah, it's super interesting, Nate. I'm sorry about the experience. It sounds a little traumatizing, but clearly there are some benefits to it. Cecil, you were telling us before we went live that there are pictures of some very familiar faces now in the NFL. Yeah. Who is around you?
Yeah, let me take you around at some of the Shrine Game alums that I've seen. Darren Waller, when Darren Waller was here as a wide receiver out of Georgia Tech. Here's Brock Purdy. There's Brock Purdy banners everywhere now, as there should be, because Brock Purdy was here last year with Skylar Thompson. 2 quarterbacks in the playoffs were here at this game last year. It's so very important. Look at this, Skip. Hey, Skip. Got to tell you, Skip. Who is that? Shannon Sharp. We love that guy, right? Uncle Shay. Love him. And then you've got this big banner, maybe my favorite because I love Walter Payton. He's my favorite football player of all time. Lawrence Taylor, Tom Brady, Shannon Sharp, all East-West Shrine Game alums. And over the years, the 17 years, I've seen so much talent. Trey Hendrickson was at this game, all-pro, one of the best pass rushers in the league. Philip Lindsay was at this game. There is quality talent here. Hey, I love the Senior Bowl. It's not all about the Senior Bowl. The Shrine Game and the way that they run this game is fantastic. There's some really good pro prospects. And if you're the Denver Broncos, you better be paying attention this week so you don't miss out.
Okay, so Cecil, who should the Broncos be paying attention to there? They might be listening to you and your reports. What are they going to see there that's going to help this team in the future?
Yeah, what's going to help this team for the future? I think a couple of different things. And one of my favorite backs, maybe my motorboat rookie of the year. I haven't voted yet, but that's Tavion Thomas, the running back from Utah. 6'2", 235, an absolute hammer on the first 2 downs. I think he's good as a screen pass guy, swing pass guy. Needs to work on his pass protection because he's mostly a cut block guy there. But we're talking about running with authority and running with power. And if you're the Broncos, we can have a dream about Latavius Murray and everything's fine. But I love Latavius. Saw him at the Texas First of the Nation game, the final Texas First of the Nation game. They don't have that game anymore. So, I've loved Latavius for 15 years, but guess what? He's a veteran. You can't really rely on that or even bringing him back. Chase Edmonds, does he rework his deal, etc. Javonte Williams, I love him, may not even be ready for the start of the regular season. So you grab a guy like Tavion Thomas, a big hammer to help you out and set that kind of tone for this team. That's one player. Now, I wrote about this as well at denversports.com, but I want to talk to Lance Boykin, cornerback, Coastal Carolina. Last year, there were two cornerbacks that I wanted the Broncos to take. Tariq Woolen, we all have heard of him now. He's a Pro Bowl player leading the league in interceptions, by the way. Tariq Woolen, who's 6'4", ran a 4.2, and then Jalen Watson, who was 6'2", Washington State kid. Nice career there so far with the Chiefs as a rookie. So you've got the Chiefs, another weapon besides Isaiah Pacheco. Lance Boykin from Coastal Carolina, again, one of these 6'3", 6'4" corners. Doesn't have the 4.2 speed. He's got around a 4.6 guy. But I want to talk to him because I remember seeing Josh Norman at this game wearing number 24. And I asked Josh at the time, like, hey, why do you wear 24? He goes, Champ Bailey. I love Champ Bailey. I grew up watching Champ Bailey. So, yes, another Coastal Carolina. And as you mentioned, Nate, this is so important for the small school prospects. Talent can come from anywhere. I don't care if it's Division III. You get the right guys that scouts are talking about. You find out who they are right here.
Cecil, drop us just a few more names for people that are going to be tuning in to be like, okay, hey, I heard this name right in passing.
Yeah.
I'm going to pay a little extra attention.
Yeah, a little extra attention. How about a Harvard guy in Truman Jones? I really want to see more on him because you get to see from Harvard to potentially the NFL as an edge rusher. That's a name to keep an eye on. And these are more later round prospects, as the Shrine Game often has, although some of these guys may vault into that second round, third round conversation. There will be a couple players here like that. Zay Flowers springs to mind there as well. And then I wonder what George Payton is thinking of Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the quarterback from UCLA. At one time, and this is why we can't get a year ahead on some of these guys, unless you're Caleb Williams. You can be a year ahead on that. But, there was a time not that long ago where the UCLA quarterback was thought of as maybe a riser in the draft. He's a late-round prospect. He's an undrafted guy right now. So Dorian Thompson-Robinson from UCLA, George Payton's alma mater, backup quarterback is a need for this team. So is that a player they will be looking at? I'll be sniffing around.
Cecil, is it still the case that the practices are more important than the game? When I played in this game, it was, look, the scouts are going to be there at practice. They might not be there during the game. They're going to have an up-close view of you. You're going to get tons of reps. They'll be able to see you do one-on-ones versus all these different corners. That's when they'll really be able to get an up-close look at you. By the time the game comes around, a lot of the scouts have left. Is that the case?
Yes, that is 100% the case. In 17 years, I've never been to the game. I'm going this year because there's a buddy of mine who is a comic book professional that we're going to have a meeting about comic books, but he wants to go to the Shrine Game as well. So I'm going to make that time to take that meeting. But anyway, so scouts always leave. You leave, and now you go to Mobile. So they'll be following me or I'll be following them. I don't know. So 2 days, Saturday, Sunday, in Las Vegas, 2 days, Tuesday, Wednesday in Mobile, Alabama. They will have a Thursday practice in Mobile, but that's also less important because scouts see what they see and you leave. The practices are very important because you see these guys, especially the Division III guys, the smaller school guys. Same drill, same rep, almost immediately after a guy that's from LSU or from Georgia. So you can tell, can you play? Did you do just what that guy did? Are you on that same level? Are you perhaps better? And this is where you get to see the separation. So these drills, I know it's practice, Allen Iverson, but these drills are incredibly important in the biggest job interview of these young men's lives.
All right, Cecil, last one from us, and we'll let you go enjoy Vegas and enjoy your Christmas morning, as we were saying earlier. You are going to be doing Orange and Blue Today this weekend along with Mace, correct?
Yes. So we'll have some stuff for you. We'll have some stuff on social, both of our social channels at Mace Denver and at Cecil Lammy. Don't follow me. And then on Monday, we will be kind of playing a greatest hits because on Monday, we'll both be flying to Mobile. So Monday, we will have a pre-recorded show from Vegas, unless the Broncos hire a head coach. So catch all of our stuff, all of our practice reports, denversports.com, #1 coverage for the NFL draft. It starts now.
Let's go, Cecil. As always, appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us have fun this weekend for sure, and be safe on
You
your
know,
travel.
Peace.
All right. Cecil
finish.
Lamby, everybody, live from Las Vegas. Nate, obviously you said you got to experience this, so I just got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
How hard mentally is it to be scouted?
So for me, it was an incredible leap to go from Division III, where look, we had 500 people at every one of our games. We didn't have a lot of scouts that came around. We had Bill Walsh, who would stand in the corner and watch our games. That was my ticket into the NFL. Was his son was the former athletic director at Menlo College. We had a lot of ex-NFL players coaching us. So Bill would come around. He's the one who put in the good word for me. He's the one who was on the Shrine game board and helped me get on that game. But once I got to the game, I remember walking in the hotel and it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. There's players everywhere. There's scouts walking around. There's big dudes with just lanyards on. Like, okay, this is a different level. This is about a job interview for the next level. And then, like I was talking about, we go into this ballroom where we have to strip down to our underwear and step up on a stage one at a time and have our hand measured, get weighed, get measured our height, and then literally have to walk to the end of a catwalk and stand there. And you heard Cecil talking about these guys' butts, having to add more weight to their butts. So those are the things that these guys are taking notes about. But then you would leave that room, and then we went into a room where the New York Giants were administering their 260-word personality test that they have, and it's theirs only. And it's like, what would you prefer? What do you prefer, Jell-O or pudding? What do you prefer with a meal, a beer or a soda? What would you rather be, a carpenter or a painter? Things like that, where it's just like, okay, and you're going over and over, and 260 questions later, your brain is fried. And then you also do other interviews one-on-one with teams that want to interview you. And then you go out onto the field, and it is, scouts lining the field, watching you practice, watching you, the way you're talking with your teammates and all that kind of thing. And so it is a high-pressure situation. But it's also, for me, it was a nice taste of it. And so I got to go out there and be around players that I knew were going to get looks at the next level and compare myself to them. And really, that was my first inkling that, yeah, I can play at the next level. These guys aren't that much better than me. So it's a great equalizer to realize that you belong, but it's a lot of pressure. And then I got hurt during that week. And so for me, I thought my chance at making the NFL just disappeared. My hamstrings tore up. It's black and blue back there. I can't play in this game that I think is my only ticket. And so now I have to start rehabbing it. And thankfully it rehabbed fast enough that I was able to get on the field for mini camps with the Niners. But it's a pressure cooker. And for the small school guys, they really do believe that this is their shot to make an impression.
So was it the Jell-O or pudding or beer or soda? Is that, do you think?
Yeah. So I think I probably went pudding. But I don't dislike Jell-O. That's the hard part. Like, I like both of these things. Why you pinning me in the corner here with this Jell-O or pudding take? And I'm not a big beer during dinner guy, but I'll have a beer with the fellas. And I don't want some. Can I choose milk? I can't. I like milk with dinner. I'm not as much as DMac does. I mean, he drinks milk like all the time. I mean, this guy's got like a Camelback with milk in it. And he's constantly drinking it. Did you know that about DMac? Never leaves home without whole milk.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So you think eventually it was, just the practices that kind of ultimately led you in? Because obviously you said you didn't play that game. So it was what you did in those first 2 days of practices before you tore your hamstring?
Not even that. And the first day of practice was kind of like a walkthrough, easy practice. I didn't get to show a lot that day. It was the second day that was the main practice, and it was near the beginning of practice when I ripped the hamstring. The problem was I had done it the previous week working out with my coach at school, a little bit of a hamstring pull. I'm like, oh my God, I have to go in 3 days and check in and actually play against the best talent in the country. And I have a hamstring pull. So I walked into that hotel hiding a tiny limp, trying to act like I wasn't hurt. And so I was already freaked out. So I go out onto the field and I try to run a slant against the press corner, and I push away from him and it just ripped. And so that was like, I was trying to conceal a hamstring problem. So thankfully, Bill Walsh, who was there, saw me kind of sulking, watching practice. One day he came up to me and he said, look, you're going to get your chance. Don't worry. You're going to get into a camp. You're going to get a chance to show what you have. This is not your last chance. So just rehab, heal up, and you'll get back out there. Sometimes it just takes that voice of wisdom, somebody who knows, who can calm you and pacify you. But I really did think at that moment that my chance had slipped away.
For sure. It's hard, that mental game aspect of it. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Nate, appreciate the story because it's definitely fun. But I do want to welcome in Mike Evans because we need to get into the Broncos drama that is going on with obviously the coaching search. And it seems like there's some different things spreading. Mike Evans, I need to know, why is the hat backwards, my friend?
Well, as every day it seems like my dreams of who's going to be the next Bronco coach dies, I have to pay tribute to a guy that I wanted to be here. So today I'm paying tribute to Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn, it seems like every time I see a picture of him, he's got a hat on backwards. I don't know if a guy, once you get to a certain age, should be wearing a hat backwards, but here we go. What do you think?
Looks good. Is that
All
say
right.
TB12 on it?
What's that?
Does it say TB12 on the side of it?
No, that's a golf hat. It's a little tailor-made golf hat.
Typically, though, the backward hats, you need the ones that are like the adjustable ones. When it's the fitted ones like that, it doesn't have the same effect. You need to see a little bit of patch of head through the thing.
The hair sticking out just a
Yeah,
little.
I'm gonna have the Peyton Manning
There you
splotch.
go.
I'm gonna have the Peyton Manning splotch when I take this off afterwards.
Well, we appreciate it, but let's get into Dan Quinn because it is fascinating to me. I didn't expect him to go back to the Cowboys, which now looking back, I'm kind of like, it felt like all signs were leading to him. So when you both heard the news yesterday, how surprised were you? Nate, you go first.
Surprised, but also kind of pleasantly surprised. I like the fact that Dan Quinn is going back to coach with a team he wants to be with. He's the highest paid coordinator in the league. Someone said like over $4 million. So he's not hurting for money. He probably feels there's unfinished business. And these days, whenever a coach does something good or a team does something good, they pluck all the coaches and the team is never the same again, right? And you think about the dynasties back in the day of just the teams that have been great over the years for sustained runs. They keep their coaching staff relatively together. I like the idea of Dan Quinn staying for unfinished business. As far as the Broncos search goes, that's not good news for us. That takes a candidate off the board. But I think for the league as a whole, it is a good thing that a coordinator who's has interest from other teams is choosing to stay with the team he's on to build something special.
For sure. Mike?
I think it also, though, reflects just how thin the coaching vacancies are this year. And Schlereth and I had Adam Schefter on yesterday. I thought he left a pretty good breadcrumb based on people he's talked to. The idea that there's not a lot of really good vacancies this year. There aren't that many. And that what you're probably going to see is next year, there might be double. There might be 7, 8, 9, 10 coaching vacancies next year. So I could see a guy like Dan Quinn saying, yeah, I could go for one of these spots that are open right now, but I got a great situation here in Dallas that you just talked about, Nate, but also the idea that, hey, maybe the Cowboys job will open. Boy, they let a bunch of assistants go, so maybe he looks at the Dallas situation as one, if I just stay put, that'll open up for me, or there could be anywhere 6, 7 other openings that might be more attractive for me to choose from.
I was also wondering.
Yeah, sorry, Rich, but why is that the idea that there's going to be double next year, that there's just teams that are kind of close to being bad and they're not quite bad yet? Like I heard you guys talking about Staley. He's on the hot seat already. Why is that the thought that it's going to be double that amount next year?
For exactly that reason, that you are going to have some teams that did stay with their coach for this year, but with the understanding, we could easily have gone another direction, but we'll give it one more year. But if it doesn't improve, then you're going to see, I think, a lot of teams you could have. You could have the Cowboys job could be open. The Chargers job could be open. There could be any number of jobs that would open up. And so, I think it's an understanding that this was kind of below average this year, right? Aren't we always usually looking at about 6 or 7 openings every year? So this year was a little bit below average. I would think that we might get back to that number and above next year.
Does it scare either one of you that, for at least as long as I've been alive, it seems like, the Broncos were always one of the powerhouse teams. Like if you had an opportunity to work for the Denver Broncos, you were 100% taking it. Like they were one of those household names all around the country. It was just a powerhouse. Are you nervous about the situation of, hey, that might not be the case anymore under this new ownership groups, that teams aren't absolutely throwing everything that they want at the Denver Broncos, Mike?
I think the ownership group has been very disappointing. They're showing that they run Walmarts, and that I think is they're taking a very Walmart type approach to this coaching search.
Walmart's a powerhouse.
It's a powerhouse, but think about how the model of becoming a powerhouse was built, and it's built on the idea of keeping things cheaper, lower cost, and not exactly being a haven for expensive stuff. And I think when we saw the group and how much they spent and their portfolios, we were all really optimistic that this was an ownership group that was going to back up a $4.5 billion purchase and then go out and be big time spenders. But come on, I think everybody who followed this from the beginning was under the assumption that this was an ownership group that was going to aim big. That was the term that Adam Schefter used. We heard from various insiders who said the Broncos want an experienced coach. And I can't help but think that as we now see the candidacies fall off the board, and now what we're left with, the idea being that this group got into it with the idea that they were going to go big, but then maybe they realized, hey, wait a minute, if I want to hire a big name head coach, I gotta give up a lot of control, not only money, but I got to give up power. I got to give up control. And do I really want to have my chief football guy, decision maker, be somebody that I've kind of ceded control to? I think maybe throughout the course of the process, they've learned what it takes to land somebody like that, and they've been scared off. And so now what you're doing is you're going after a cheaper version, one that you can control a lot more. And let's face it, that's something we've seen around here. We've seen that model repeatedly around here, and we don't like it. I don't like it.
Can you really blame him, Mike, for being scared off from the Sean Payton idea, for example? And I know Sean Payton is the latest disappointment for you, a guy with a ton of experience. He's won a Super Bowl, 15 years with the New Orleans Saints, but he probably sat in front of him and laid out what you just did. And this new ownership group who just got this team is like, well, no, we want to be involved more than you're suggesting we will be. And if they look in his past, I mean, the guy doesn't have a clean record either. He left New Orleans when they got in cap trouble. He was suspended by the NFL for an entire season. The only time a head coach has ever been suspended. The DEA investigated them for allocating pills and whatnot, and he was named in that. Isn't that a concern for an ownership group, especially someone with Condoleezza Rice involved who doesn't like that kind of funny business?
Well, I think that if you have been preparing for months for this, and let's face it, once you knew that Nathaniel Hackett was going to be gone at some point, you began preparing for this. I think that if you're smart, if you're good at your job, you're going to reach out to people who are experienced and get a sense of, all right, if I'm going to hire somebody like this, what does it mean? And you shouldn't be surprised when it comes up during the interview process and shocked by what it takes to hire a big-time coach. And I just don't buy the idea of being scared away by somebody who's got power and has an ego. Look at some of the most successful franchises out there. Bill Belichick has plenty of control, and yet Robert Kraft, the owner, by and large, over 20-plus years, has sat back and let Belichick do his thing. You saw the same thing. Dallas had a dynasty going with Jimmy Johnson. Jerry Jones did not like all the power that Jimmy Johnson had. Fire Jimmy Johnson, and the Cowboys have never been the same. Look at you, Nate, with the guy you played for, Mike Shanahan, a guy that you revere. You know darn well that guy, nothing happened in that building that Mike Shanahan was not aware of. He had complete power, maybe even so much so that when it came time for John Elway to think about bringing back Mike Shanahan, part of the reason why Joe Ellis balked at it was he had seen firsthand how much power Mike had consolidated the last time he was the head coach. He didn't want to go down that road again. So I think there are plenty of examples of coaches, very successful coaches, who have had a lot of power and a lot of influence. And I think as owners, you got to understand that if you want big boy coaches with proven records, that's kind of the cost of doing business.
Okay, so I saw one of those comments, and it was very interesting because you say, Mike, you say the word cheaper when it comes to Walmart, and David says, well, most see value. What's your response to that?
Yeah, okay. Josh McDaniels was supposed to be a value pick. Vance Joseph was supposed to be a value pick. Vic Fangio was supposed to be a value pick. Nathaniel Hackett was supposed to be a value pick. That's the idea. That's how you sell these coaches who've never coached before. They are the next big thing, and we're getting them at the beginning, and we get to reap all the benefits. Again, in a different time in Bronco history, I'd be all on board with the idea of hiring a DeMeco Ryans. Not now, not with what we've gone through and not what we've witnessed over the last few years. I want to do it a different way. And for the people who want to advocate, let's say a DeMeco Ryans or any other first-time head coach, when the only real answer you have to people like me who say why is, well, you never know. Why not try it again? You got to come up with something better than you never know. This could be the next Mike Tomlin. This could be the next fill in the blank. You got to do something better. You got to have something more than that, watching what we've gone through over the last several years.
Mike, 3 out of the last 4 teams left in the NFL right now are coached by first-time head coaches, right? And I know that you're advocating for a guy who's done it before because of the failures of the last 3 coaches who hadn't. So considering the fact that 3 of the 4 remaining coaches are first-time head coaches, do you believe then it's a Denver Broncos curse with the first-time coach? And then it's a Denver Broncos thing because the trend would tell you that first-time head coaches are getting some good results. I mean, Mike McDaniel, first-time head coach, went to the playoffs. Brian Daboll, first-time head coach, went to the playoffs. Kevin O'Connell, first-time head coach. Mike Tomlin's a first-time head coach. Sean McDermott's a first-time head coach. Why won't it work? Just because it hasn't worked?
Well, first of all, I'm a big believer in sports curses. So I do not dismiss the idea that it's a Broncos curse. So you got me there. But you can't just pick the wins, Nate, when you're saying, well, 3 of the 4 coaches that are playing this weekend are first-time head coaches. But there are also currently 15 other first-time head coaches in today's NFL who aren't coaching this weekend, including 11 first-time head coaches who didn't make the playoffs this year. So, yeah, you can pick the select group, but you can't overlook that there's a huge pool, even bigger pool of first-time head coaches who I would ask any fan in those cities that did not make the playoffs, what's that first-time head coach done for you?
Okay, so then Sean Payton must be your number 1. What is your take on the drama and all the news being spread out about, oh, there's a power struggle with the ownership group, and then him coming out and tweeting and saying, oh, like that's not true, yada, yada, yada.
Okay, first of all, Sean Payton has handled this badly. And maybe he got caught up in the idea that I'm working for Fox and I'm in the media and it's my job to throw stuff out there and have opinions and say stuff. And I think maybe he got carried away with that. In what he shared with people he knows. I think also some of those confidants, whether it be the Jeff Duncan guy in New Orleans or a guy like Colin Cowherd, probably were probably too loose with what they got from Payton. Okay, It was a mistake. The good news, let's use this weekend as a chance to take a breath. Sean Payton, I keep hearing the ship has sailed. All right, let's make one of those ship to shore calls. And let's have Sean Payton reach out to the Broncos, say, hey, look, we got off on the wrong foot. Let's revisit this. Let's talk about it. And maybe Greg Penner and Condoleezza Rice can look at it and say, all right, listen, we didn't like the idea that you were throwing out in public $25 million a year to be the coach. Let's revisit this. I think there's still time to salvage Sean Payton and the Broncos. Look, I look at where the Broncos are at right now in their history. I think they need a guy like Sean Payton. And I'm not worried about his ego. I'm not worried about giving up a first-round pick. I'm not worried about how much it's going to cost. Isn't it kind of ironic that we're worried about the power and the influence and the say that a guy like Sean Payton may have? Meanwhile, up in Boulder, we got Deion Sanders having come in, turned that program on its ear, walked in that first meeting, said, hey, guys, transfer portal open. Got your name on it. See ya. You know, he's making his own marketing deals, his own merchandise deals. The Buffs are paying him more money than they've ever paid any coach. They're giving him unlimited power. And ask any CU fan, Jake Shapiro, you love it. You love the idea of what kind of power Deion has. So why is everybody scared about the power and the ego of a Sean Payton who has a proven NFL track record, even more than Deion does?
Let's not forget, though, the Pac-12 didn't like the power that Deion was doing when he announced that they were going to play week 0 against Arizona State. They came back and said, oh, no, that's not happening because there's somebody above Dion. There's somebody above Sean Payton that does not want to give up that power.
Yeah,
well, that's the Pac-12 though, Nate. That's not CU. CU is giving him carte blanche.
Yeah, and when else have we been disappointed by the arrival of a dude with a huge ego that was promised to resurrect our team, right? Russell Wilson factor cannot be avoided, okay? We brought Nathaniel Hackett here to be the offensive-minded head coach who's going to, be a great in-game decision maker and be able to get this offense cooking and Russ cooking. He wasn't able to do that at all, and it wasn't until Jerry Rosburg took over that Russell Wilson did settle down a bit and played some decent football. Maybe because there was no ego involved, maybe because they were able to tamp that down. So to what extent do you think a head coach has to be a guy with an even temperament without the ego that gets back to ball, and it isn't about him and his personality and his track record and him being the football dictator that's going to set everybody straight? Why not an understated guy who gets down to work and just gets these guys to play well together? It's about the players. It's about the players, not the coach, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, but the problem is if you hire DeMeco Ryans or any first-time head coach, we know the history of first-time head coaches is that the clock's ticking on them right from the start. And a guy like DeMeco Ryans, unfortunately for him, would probably be tied. His staff would be tied to whatever happened with Russell Wilson. And whereas with a Sean Payton, you can hire Sean Payton and he would command the kind of control but also commitment that it wouldn't be just simply about Russ. Now you got the benefit of a guy with a proven track record, an offensive track record, who can come in and, hey, if he can salvage Russell Wilson over the course of the next couple of years, great. But if he doesn't, he knows he's going to be here. The Broncos know he's going to be here. And so while he's trying to salvage Russ, he can quietly behind the scenes put into plans life after Russ. And so therefore you're going to have more of a long-term plan, a long-term vision, and you're going to be able to actually implement it and work at it as opposed to having a first-time head coach who's going to be coming in. He's like, I got to do something with Russ because he's going to be here for the next couple of years. And if it doesn't work out, I might be the one that pays with my job.
All right, what about this? Sorry, Rachel, but what about this idea? Because Sean Payton is like, he's the offensive guru, but he's also the passing game guru. You look at his teams, their running game has never been good. They're a bottom third running team every year. They're a top 5 passing team. We just watched Russell Wilson try to throw the ball all over the yard. It ain't working out. Everybody agrees we got to get back to the running game, back to the basics of football. Do we trust Sean Payton's football ego to tamp down and make it a simple offense where you are focusing on running the ball and not trying to let Russ cook?
I think if you talk to anybody around the NFL and say, okay, give me your top 3, top 4 offensive minds in the NFL, I guarantee you Sean Payton's going to be on all those lists. So I would think this guy is good enough, bright enough, innovative enough. He's been around the league forever. He understands where the league was, where it's come from, what it is now, maybe even the direction it's going in. And I got to believe a guy that is that offensively gifted is going to be able to read the situation here with the Broncos, with Russell Wilson, and be able to devise the right game plan. That honestly is the least of my worries.
Interesting. Okay. How much do we trust the Shanahan family?
Ask Nate. He loves the Shanahan family.
I trust them. I mean, those guys are smart. They got the track record to prove it. It's multi-generational. I bbelieve what those guys tell me.
And you know what? I agree with you. But that's part of the problem with hiring DeMeco Ryans is because here's why. Let me explain. Man, you would think with all the times you have DMac on, you'd be used to outrageous statements and you'd let him go. So here's the thing. If you pluck DeMeco Ryans from the 49ers, first of all, you're talking about somebody who's only got 5 years of coaching experience. He's only been a defensive coordinator for a couple of years. And Nate, based on your time with Mike Shanahan, and talk to somebody like an Orlando Franklin who spent a year there, Kyle has his hands in everything. Everything. He is involved in every meeting. He's involved in every drill. And I just wonder how much true autonomy has a DeMeco Ryans been given so that when he becomes a head coach, he knows how to run his own shop.
Kyle Shanahan did say, though, when he endorsed DeMeco Ryans, that he was also involved in the offense. Like, he also kind of has his hands in almost everything going on, which is why he would be a great head coaching candidate.
And you know why Kyle said that? And it's smart of him too, because what does every coach want besides winning a Super Bowl? He wants to be able to create his own legacy. He wants to be able to create his own tree. And this is, of course, Kyle. Kyle, name me the last time you heard a head coach who's like, nope. This guy, he's not ready to be a head coach. Of course he's going to talk. Of course he's going to talk up DeMeco Ryans. Of course.
But he doesn't have to talk him up the way he did. What he said was the moment he was drafted in Houston as a 21-year-old linebacker, he was in charge. He was the guy who was leading that defense. Everywhere he's gone, he's been the leader. He got to the Niners as quality control. It was clear this was the guy in the room you should listen to. When he became the defense coordinator, it was clear this guy knew everything. He has the command of the room. He has the command out on the field. And he said he should have been a head coach last year. Yes, he's ready to be a head coach. I don't want to lose him. He doesn't want to lose him, but he knows he's going to. And I don't think he's lying about what he's saying.
I think he said the same things about Robert Saleh, didn't he? Same things about Robert Saleh, and Robert Saleh left, and Robert Saleh hasn't turned the NFL on its ear. In fact, he just hired Nathaniel Hackett.
See, he's playing chess. We're playing checkers, Mike.
Wait, was it you who said we're playing Jenga? Who did we have on this week? Somebody said we're playing Jenga. Maybe it was DMac. I don't know, but it was funny. He said, we're not playing chess or checkers. We're playing Jenga here at the Denver Broncos. So it's a different type of game.
It feels like it because, man, this franchise with what we've been through, it feels like we're like getting ready to put in one piece and then the whole thing could topple over. And
exactly.
That's why this hiring is huge.
Well, exactly. But isn't that a reason why it's more risky to hire Sean Payton and give him this big contract if we're playing Jenga anyway? And it's so hard to make this work anyway. If you saddle yourself to Sean Payton, who's supposed to be this football dictator, you give him all this power, you give him all this money, and he sucks. What happened then? What do you do then?
Well, Nate, I'd say, could it be any worse than what you've been going through for the last 7 years?
That's what you said last year.
Well, but at least with Sean Payton, you are talking about a proven track record. This is a guy who all he did was win, and he developed. Not only did he develop and turn Drew Brees into a Hall of Famer, but he got Jameis Winston after Winston was a wreck with Tampa, and actually made him look like a serviceable NFL legitimate quarterback before Winston got hurt. He did not get fired. He walked away of his own choice. And by the way, this is not somebody who is burned out from coaching, as some has suggested. If he had his way, he would have coached this year. He'd have been coaching the Miami Dolphins with Tom Brady as his quarterback in Miami, but that thing got blown up by the Brian Flores lawsuit. So, hey, I don't question this guy's motivation to coach, and the people that have been around him that we have on our own show, from Schlereth to a Joel Klatt, tell you that this guy, there's a perception that he's a power-hungry egomaniac, but that behind the scenes, he cares deeply about his players. He goes to great lengths to take care of his players, but there is an understanding who is in charge. And boy, I just think that after the clown show that we've been watching around here for the last 7 years, the idea of somebody who knows how to walk in a building and instantly be in charge, man, and have the record to go along with it, I would think Broncos country would be starving for that.
And I think we all agree that we've been talking, we need an adult in the room when it comes to the Denver Broncos. You need that. And people don't like this take, but I just don't think Sean Payton would be who he is today if it wasn't for Drew Brees. And I do not think Russell Wilson is where Drew Brees was at in his career, what made Sean Payton Sean Payton. But Mike, as always, an absolute pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for taking time with us.
Dan Quinn. Oh, Dan Quinn, it would have been so nice.
The drama continues. Definitely stay tuned at denversports.com. But we got to talk about a big game this upcoming weekend. Tomorrow, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, we're going to see Embiid versus Jokic. Jake Shapiro now joining us. Jake, how are you this morning?
DeMeco Ryans, also a backwards hat guy. Come on.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an age thing. I know Mike said it's an age thing. I think Nate, and you're a lot younger than Mike, more towards my age. When we
Don't let Mike your path.
When our generation ages a little bit, I think we're carrying the backwards hat with us up the aging totem pole.
Yeah. You see guys in their 60s dressed like teenagers all the time. I think that's become more acceptable. Back in the day, you're supposed to you graduate college, you're supposed to be an adult now. You're supposed to dress like it. You're supposed to, put aside all those petty things you did as a kid. People don't do that anymore. I think you can stay young forever by putting your hat backwards. I like it, Jake.
Hat backwards, hoodies, we love it all. Jake, what do you got for us this weekend? Because obviously this could be some playoff matchups here for sure.
Well, this is going to be an awesome game Saturday afternoon. It's on ABC, so people can actually watch it in Denver. If you pull up the recent catch-alls, and this is just a whole bunch of stuff that you're looking at the screen, but all the green basically means Jokic is leading, and they're all different types of stats. We're talking about the MVP race for the third year in a row, and I don't think anyone here is necessarily keen to get into it, because we've been into it so much. But Joel Embiid wants to talk about this MVP race. He has been named the MVP, the most valuable Philadelphian, because he was so salty by Nikola Jokic winning 2 straight MVPs. Yesterday, he did not get named an all-star starter, unlike Nikola Jokic. So Joel Embiid is playing for a lot here. He has made this his personal rivalry on NBA's Rivalry Week. And it should be a really fun game. Rachel, you said potential playoff matchup. Probably not, just because East versus West. A lot would need to go right for both of these teams to get through. But yeah, you're right. The Sixers, I think, are 2 games behind the Nuggets in the standings right now. Nuggets have the best record in the West. Philadelphia is the second best record in the East. So these teams are both really good. And unlike last year when we saw this Philadelphia team, James Harden is actually playing like James Harden again. So this is a very scary team.
Jake, I got a question for you. That graphic you just showed us with all those weird little Darko metrics and upper downers, does anyone actually who's voting pay attention to that stuff? I mean, or is that just for folks to make a case?
I feel like it's always
is anyone actually looking at that? Yeah. Or are we just trusting our eyes?
I think a good majority of the public, of the voting public, does look actually at some of these statistics, because according to FanDuel right now, Jokic is actually minus 130 to win MVP. Embiid is at plus 850 behind Luka and Jason Tatum. So the reason those metrics actually help is not because, hey, we can't look at the court and see who's most valuable. You could do that with the Nuggets last year. It's really easy because the guys playing around Jokic would not have even come close to making the playoffs. He was the most valuable. But where those metrics really help is the Nuggets play a really slow pace. So they kind of even out some of those pace stats. So they can even it out so every team's playing about the same possessions per game. They can also even out stuff like, hey, what does Jokic actually do on defense? Well, we have a hard time quantifying that, but because he is so good and the Nuggets are so good at defense when he's on the court versus when he's off, we can start to understand that. So those stats, while hard to understand at the surface level, if you do some digging, they make it easier for you to just evaluate a player. I mean, we all look at NBA 2K and go, oh, 97 overall. I want that guy, not the 95. Those little stats, those catch-alls, that's all that does. It just helps you put one number on a guy.
All right, so say Jokic goes out, does a triple-double like it seems like he does almost every single night. We're so lucky to watch him in Denver. Does this solidify his case of why he should win an MVP for the 3rd time in a row?
Yeah, Rachel, you're looking at it right now, and he's just about averaging a triple-double. He's actually 5 assists behind the pace right now. Joel Embiid's averaging more points per game, but similar statistics, a lot less assists. To answer your question, though, no. You can't average it. You can't get a triple double in game 51 and it solidifies your MVP case. Like
you're doing it against another member who is in the conversation, and we're seeing it again on national TV.
I don't think it. I mean, it can help. It can also hurt. But I think this MVP race is going to come down to game, 79, game 80. Like we're going to be looking at this all the way down to the wire, and I don't think that Joel Embiid is Nikola Jokic's competition here. I think Jason Tatum, if the Boston Celtics stay hot, is going to be a really hard guy to beat because of the East Coast bias. And also he's been incredible, honestly. And then Luka Doncic is just the guy everyone wants to anoint the NBA's next king. So it's going to be meanwhile, Luka goes out last night and look at Spencer Dinwiddie. Looked a lot like Luka Doncic, didn't he? Maybe a little bit of a system guy, huh? Or maybe Spencer's just that good. Go Buffs. Yeah. So with Nikola Jokic, I think, you know, this could be a showcase game, one of those memorable games, one of those all-time games, Jokic versus Embiid. But I honestly don't even care as a Nuggets fan if he even plays in this game, because it's all about winning the war at the end of the day. We've won the battles the last 2 seasons. The Nuggets need to win the war. We've never even been to the war. Like, it's time. This is the year. So I was happy they sat out the other night. I don't necessarily care what's happening in game 55 anymore. It's all about looking forward.
Jake, just like you mentioned a couple minutes ago, that this Joel Embiid, he's excited about this. He wants to make his case for the MVP this game. He's trying to showcase his skills. Nikola Jokic, he doesn't care about that. He wants to pass the ball. He wants to pass the ball to his buddies, and he wants to win a game. I think that's why the Nuggets are the better team. Nikola Jokic is the better player, and it's going to show tomorrow.
So
Jokic
averages, I think, 9 points per game less than Embiid this season. But he averages also 6 assists more than Embiid per season. Well, every basket in the NBA counts for at least 2 points, some 3. If you're lucky, sometimes they even count for 4. So if you just do a simple math and count him 6 times 2, because he averages 6 more assists, that's 12 more points. So Jokic is creating a lot more points per his offense than Joel Embiid. He's also honestly a comparable defensive player, which we don't give him enough credit for. Jokic is top 15 in steals right now. So yeah, you're right, Nate. It's a more fun style of basketball to watch than Joel Embiid and James Harden foul bait the entire game. But as a fan of basketball, what James Harden and Joel Embiid do is beautiful in the sense of like watching some mathematician find a way around the rules of math to like exploit a new thing. Like that's what Joel Embiid and James Harden do. They're just exploiting things, and it's kind of cool, but it's also super annoying to watch if you're a fan.
It's kind of lame too. It's kind of stupid.
Yeah.
Hate it.
I feel like Jake back in like middle school when they were like, write a poem about something you love. Jake was like, I love basketball, and wrote like a 15-line poem about basketball. Jake, as always, an absolute pleasure. But real quick before we go, the show has gone by way too fast, you guys. We have to talk about this weekend's games real quickly. Who you got between Philly and the 49ers, Nate?
I got the Niners. I grew up a Niners fan. It's going to be a really tough game for them, and I know Philly's probably, you know, the leader in the clubhouse. I think the 49ers are going to find a way to do it. It's the Niners to the Super Bowl.
Jake?
Joe Burrow's winning the whole Super Bowl. I don't know. Join Thirst TikTok, Nate. You need to get on the Joe Burrow Thirst TikTok.
Oh, I'm him. You know who's going to beat him? I'm here is going to take out I'm him at Geha Stadium. They're calling it Burrowhead. They're getting too cocky, man. You're overlooking the Chiefs. Chiefs are going to win.
Money McPherson walked up to that field goal last year and told Joe Burrow he's going to make it. This is that team. They're going to do it again. Last year they were a year early and still got there.
No, they're not, Jake. They're not.
All right. I'm taking the Eagles, and I'm taking, man, the AFC is so tough, but I'm taking the Bengals only because Patrick Mahomes does have a little bit of an ankle injury with that high sprain, so we'll have to see how that plays into it. But it's going to be some good games. Nate, seriously, thank you so much for hanging out with us for the last 45 minutes. Jake, as always, appreciate you and everything you do on the back end as well. And to everybody in the comments, can't thank you enough. We will see you guys Monday morning, 10:30 a.m. Come hang out with us again. Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye.
Later.